Welcome, everybody. This is the February 13th meeting of the Conejo Open Space Conservation Agency. And we'll call to order, and please join me in the salute to the flag. Ready to begin? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May we have the roll call? And before we start, we'd like to welcome Director Jones back to the board, but this time representing City Council. So may we have the roll call, please?
Director Jones?
Here.
Vice Chair Bill de la Pena?
Here.
Director Huffer?
Yes.
Director Nichols?
Yes.
Chair Sky?
Here. And I don't have any public comment cards that I see. All right. We'll go on to the Conejo Open Space Trails Action Committee reports. First up is Steve for the Open Space Challenge.
Hi, good evening. I'm Steve Bacharach, Chairman of the Conejo Open Space Trails Action Committee. And starting March 1st, we have I think it's the seventh annual Conejo Challenge, where we pick out 10 trails from various places throughout the open space and encourage the public, whether local or sometimes even a little further afield, to come out and experience our trails, whether on horseback or foot or on a bike. And then they send in pictures to social media and email me and let me know they did them. And then I check them off, and we have a big raffle at the end and a bunch of sponsors. And it's just a great way to tell everybody about the wonderful open spaces that we have in the area. And over the years, what's been great is that even longtime residents who spend a lot of time on the trails, they tend to find something they've never seen before. I encourage any of the newer directors to, get out there and do it. There's a lot of ways that you can find some new fun stuff. And really the best parts, actually, for me personally, is when I hear from parents and children who are doing this as families, and they're disappointed when they're done with all 10 because they really take it as an opportunity to spend time with loved ones. It's just, so that's been the best part for me personally. So it goes for 3 months. Any questions?
No questions? Oh, Director Nichols.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question. You talked about the various participants. Do you have any idea how many participants you've had over the years, or is it increasing or staying?
Yeah, we do keep track of those numbers. I think, let's see, I think there were about 150 participants last year with about 65 people who finished all 10. We get that, and that was our biggest year. So we started off maybe closer to a couple dozen people finishing and maybe 30 or 40 people trying it out. So I'm not sure how much more it's going to grow, but that's where we are right now. Very good. So that led to, last year we've always had our raffle at the end at a local bar or restaurant or something, and now we'll probably have to move it outside because it just got too crazy. There's too many people, which is great. It's a good problem to have.
Do most of those people show up for the raffle?
A lot of people showed up.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we were at Figueroa Mountain Brewery. That's it, and it was standing room only. Yeah, a lot of people.
Very good. Very good. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks so much, Steve.
Yeah.
Great work. Ms. Elaine Hagan for Trails Education Days.
Yes, hello. Thank you. Elaine Hagan, representing the Conejo Open Space Foundation. The foundation raises funds to support Trails Education Days along with a whole bunch of other COSCA volunteer programs. And this year, Trails Education Days is going to be about a month earlier than usual based on spring break, Easter, and testing schedules. So we're crossing our fingers that the flowers will be out and the sun will be out and that we'll be able to go through the whole week without any rain dates. So we hope. This will be the 28th year for Trails Education Days.
Wow.
COSTAC members Mulaney Ashen and Dorothy Sullivan are involved directly taking care of the Nature Center volunteers and the Trail Safety and Courtesy Workshop. Dorothy is handling that. Mark Langton is no longer available after all those years. He has a job that will keep him from working on Trails Education Days this year. But we're fully stocked with volunteers already, which is really wonderful. And we'd love to have any and all of you come and spend some time with us this year.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions of Ms. Hagan? We also have item B, COSCA Volunteer Corps activity. I don't have was that you, Anna?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. I have a brief PowerPoint. Our volunteers continue to make significant contributions. For the last quarter of 2018, the Trail Watch program had 181 reports submitted and 322 hours donated. Trail Ambassadors had 26 reports submitted and 42 and a half hours donated. And Adopt a Trail had 60 reports submitted and 213 hours donated. That brings our year-end totals for 2018 for these programs to 406 reports and 742 and a half hours for Trail Watch, 104 reports and 192 hours for Trail Ambassadors, and 195 reports and 670 hours for Adopt a Trail. We extend a really big thank you to our many volunteers, and I'm available for questions.
Any questions of Ms. Huber? Yes, Director Huffer.
I guess I'm still new in what constitutes a report?
There's an online form that volunteers fill out to just record their observations, and then that generates an email which the rangers get.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, many thanks to those dedicated volunteers. It really is something.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Yes,
I also had a
Director
question.
Nichols, go ahead.
Following up with Mr. Huffer, what about Adopt a Trail report? What does that mean?
They're all fairly similar. Each program has differing levels of responsibilities. And so, for example, Trail Ambassadors, they engage with visitors, and so their report form is a little bit more detailed. Adopt a Trail folks sometimes do very minimal maintenance, and so they will make observations about that with what they've done. And then Trail Watch is kind of the most passive program. But the report forms all are tailored to, what those folks are doing as part of that specific program.
Okay, so as an Adopt a Trail, someone might report that they picked up trash in a certain section
Absolutely.
of the trail.
Yes.
And they're just reporting just to document what they did. Got it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you. We'll go back to item 3, public comments. I have a public speaker card from David Lake. Please come up to the microphone.
Thanks. David Lake of Thousand Oaks. I'm back to talk again about the Wildwood parking lot at the end of Avenida de los Arboles. This is probably my 4th or 5th time talking about it. There are 5 really good parking areas for Wildwood Park. They're big, they're well-designed, they're not downslope draining into a stream, and they're not 80 feet from where my children sleep. Thousands of car trips are directed to one parking area that is 80 feet from where my children are trying to sleep. In a small, quiet corner of Thousand Oaks, adjacent to the most accident-ridden corner in the city, perhaps. It's really kind of crazy. It has to stop. This parking lot is destroying our neighborhood. It's decimating our tranquility and our property values. You know all of this. I've said this many times. It's also having a deleterious effect on the environment at the Mesa Trailhead. The wise thing to do if you have a huge crowd of people is not to situate them all in one little corner that happens to be the most ecologically sensitive area of the park. Right now, probably tonight, people are walking up there. It's muddy. The soil composition, you all know, it's very mucky. They walk on the sides. Every year, the trails are growing wider and wider. If they were situated at the canyon bottom at Hill Canyon, they would be in an area that recovers quickly because there's a lot more moisture in the canyon. If they were situated at the end of Rancho Conejo, they'd be walking down the Edison Fire Road. Both of those areas are much safer because you're not being bombarded with mountain bikers going 20 and 30 miles an hour down the hills on the mesa. If they were at the paved parking lots along Arboles, it would be safer for the environment and for them. Every time I've been up here, I get dismissed with some kind of NIMBYism remark. Please stop it. The neighborhood wasn't like this when we bought our homes. It was livable. It was quiet. There were a dozen cars, and most of those people were hikers. They owned hiking boots. They seek solitude. The crowd is not like that now. Right now, as we speak, on Facebook, there is a group hike on March 9th, Saturday, 9 a.m., when the parking lot will be full. There will be over 150 cars there every Saturday, 9 a.m. Right now, there are 75 signed up as going, 52 shares, 1,400 have expressed interest, which means all of their friends will hear about this. So there will be an extra 100 cars or so showing up at 9 a.m. Saturday morning, driving around our neighborhood, likely driving up my street. And it wasn't like this a few years ago. This is just insane that you put the only parking lot for Wildwood Park next to houses when you have so many good options to choose from. I don't want to limit access to the park. I want to put the cars, the thousands of cars that go there every week. It's more crowded than Runyon Canyon. It's more crowded than Mount Wilson Trailhead. It's more crowded than Griffith Park trailheads. I lead hikes there every month at those trailheads because it's less crowded than where I live in Thousand Oaks. I'm leading a hike. I'm going to stop. This crowd, if even 10% of it showed up at the trailhead near where you live, Claudia, in Westlake Village, where I've hiked many times with your neighbors, the neighborhood would shut it down. You would shut down the street. You would not tolerate this for a second. So I don't want to hear these dismissive comments about NIMBYism. I want you guys to do something about it. I want you to fix it. It's been going on for 2 years now. When you've claimed that you're going to fix it, you claim that you're changing the address to Hill Canyon. It needs to happen sooner. The crowd is ridiculous. I can't sleep after 6 a.m. The dust is killing us. We need something done. Thanks.
Thank you for your remarks, Mr. Lake. Noted.
I know the item is not on the agenda. Nonetheless, I can say and ask that we bring it back, although we're not meeting until May 8th. Can the Park District put that on the agenda and then maybe the City Council? Or we need some sort of feedback or report as to the progress, if any, is happening at this location.
Okay, thank you. Let's go on to our consent calendar. We have minutes from November 14th and December 10th.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
could we split these in two since two of us were not in
Yes,
position?
Definitely, we can do
Thank you.
two motions. How about the minutes of November 14th? Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval.
Okay. Do we have a second for the minutes of November 14th? I'll second. All in favor of adopting November 14th minutes, please say aye. Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
One abstention. Thank you. Now December 10th, minutes of December 10th. Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval.
Moved. How about a second?
I'll second it.
And seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any noes or abstentions? Okay, thank you. Now, next item is the annual election of chair and vice chair. Ms. Hubert?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Section 12 of the COSCA Manual of Procedure indicates that the COSCA Board shall elect a chair and vice chair at the first regular meeting of the year. A 10-year history of the chair and vice chair positions is included on page 5 of your packets. According to that table, Directors Skay and Jones are currently serving as chair and vice chair, respectively. Thank you, and I'm available for questions.
Okay. Any questions?
I do have a question. It says, I'm a little confused because it says that I'm the vice chair right now.
Yes, thank you for pointing that out. The table is the correct, the table was updated based on the minutes from last February's meeting,
Okay.
and I neglected to make that small edit in the text of the staff report, but the
Okay,
table is
very good.
correct.
That's what I thought. Just wanted to clarify.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Very good. What's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair,
Director Nichols?
just in looking at the brief history that we have here, see that Mr. Huffer has not served as the vice chair, and so I'd like to nominate him as the next vice chair.
Okay. This is for vice chair. Mr. Huffer, any other nominations? Nominations are closed. All in favor of Chuck Huffer as vice chair, please say aye. Aye. Any noes or abstentions? Very good. Congratulations, Chuck. Yeah. And now we need a nomination for chair.
For chair,
Yes.
I move that Director Sky be elected as chair for the coming year.
All right. Thank you.
I'll second.
And seconded. Any other nominations? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any noes or abstentions? Good. Thank you very much. Next, we have our proposed 2019 directors meeting schedule. Ms. Huber?
Thank you, Madam Chair. At our board meeting last November, we presented the initial version of the 2019 meeting schedule. As Director Bill de la Pena had a concern about the date proposed for December, we're presenting this revised version, which moves the December date forward a week. So I hope that's okay, and I'm available for questions.
Does it meet with the board's approval? Do we need a motion on this? All right. Who would like to move?
I move we adopt the proposed meeting schedule for 2019.
Okay. And a second.
I'll second.
Okay. We'll give it to Mr. Nichols. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Hearing no noes or abstentions, we'll go on to consideration of a resolution designating authorized agents of COSCA to seek federal emergency and hazard mitigation funding assistance. Marjan?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. On November 8th, 2018, the Woolsey and Hill fires moved quickly and erratically into several locations within Thousand Oaks and the surrounding areas, including COSCA-owned and managed open space. On November 12, 2018, the President of the United States declared the November 18 California wildfires a major disaster, making federal disaster aid available to Butte, Los Angeles, and Ventura counties. In addition to loss and damage to private property in the region, public infrastructures within the city, CRPD, and COSCA open space was damaged or destroyed. As part of the public assistance program coordinated by FEMA and the California Office of Emergency Services, the city, CRPD, and COSCA are eligible for cost reimbursement for damaged property and infrastructure. A request for assistance was submitted to FEMA and accepted, but it's contingent upon COSCA providing a list to FEMA of authorized agents that can sign documents related to state and federal emergency and hazard mitigation funding assistance. The attached resolution designates CRPD General Manager Jim Friedel, Deputy City Manager Gary Rogers, and City Finance Director Jamie Boscorino as the three authorized agents of COSCA. And with that, staff recommends adoption of the resolution, and staff's available for questions.
Questions of staff? Director Nichols.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just was reflecting back on some of the history that I recall. I know we have had fires in COSCA land in the past, which I presume had some emergencies related. Have we not had this type of representation before in staff, and was it not needed? Is there something that's changed? Just curious as to why this is before the board this evening.
I've probably been around longer than some others. I can recall some of the prior incidents, and I think it's the FEMA standards have improved, and from their perspective, more detailed, more specific. Things, as we're going through the FEMA process now, they have program managers assigned to us, and they're working with us, and there's a lot more I don't want to say red tape, but there's a whole lot more detail and interest in lots of parts of what we're doing than in prior disasters that I've been involved with. So not that it's a bad thing. It's they're looking at things very, very, very closely. And I think more, generic reporting might have been okay 15 years ago, 20 years ago. So.
And with that, I know the city and the Park District work very closely together, and I know we have the individuals that are mentioned here are certainly more than capable. But is there like some pecking order some way? I mean, like, who is there somebody first, second, or third, or everybody operates equally? Just was curious, is there a process? And maybe this is in the evolution stage as this process is going through.
Yeah, so even as recently as this current disaster with CRPD, it's not totally clear that we have to declare our own emergency as a special district because we fall under the city's umbrella with the OES structure. And really what I'm learning is even though we've declared our own disaster as CRPD, we end up having to file things through the city in order to get recovery through FEMA because it's, we're under the city umbrella for the OES, the Office of Emergency Services and that sort of thing. So there is certainly a pecking order. The Park District kind of, plays a support role. And I think COSCA is more analogous to the Park District than the city. So it sort of serves in a support role to both the city and the Park District. Because there aren't employees of COSCA, we don't technically have, I think, a taxpayer ID number for COSCA. They had no idea what to do with that. They just were befuddled about how to handle COSCA when we first were talking to them at FEMA. So I think this is trying to be responsive as we can to what their needs are about what COSCA is as an entity.
Okay.
So.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Director Jones.
Yeah, I'd like to inquire if you could maybe briefly sum up the type of damage that is experienced in open space in a fire like this. Did we lose any structures, COSCA? Did the damage to trees and so forth in other words, are there any steps to take to improve the environment as a result of the fire?
I don't know. Is that part of your update, or would that? Yeah, Matt's got that as part of the agenda.
Yeah, I'll wait to get my answer. Thank you.
Okay. No other questions. Do we have a motion? Moved by Director Bill De La Pena. A second?
Second.
Second of Director Huffer. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any noes or abstentions? That carries. Thank you. Next up is a report on the annual financial audit, the financial report for fiscal year 2017-2018, and that would be Janet.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Directors of the Board. I'm here to present the fiscal year 17-18 COSCA annual financial report. This report is prepared by the Finance Department of the City and is audited by our external auditors, Rogers, Anderson, Malady, and Scott. A few of the brief highlights of the financial report are as follows. As of June 30th, 2018, the net position was $76.3 million. Of that, $74.8 million is invested in capital, mainly land, and the balance of $1.5 million is restricted for future acquisitions. The open space maintenance costs were $1.5 million, which was covered 50-50 by the city and CRPD. There was a slight increase in expenses compared to last fiscal year due to salary and benefits and trail maintenance costs. The rental income increased to $83,000 from $70,000 in the previous year, and the rental income is mainly from renting out satellite space. Those are the general highlights, and I'm available for any questions.
Questions of Ms. Bogue? Yes, Director Nichols.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was reading through this and found several references to fund accounting, and I was trying to get a little better grasp on what that meant. Can you maybe explain that a little bit better, since I'm not really an accountant and don't understand all these funds? I have a general grasp of it, but just understand a little bit more of what fund accounting is and why it's used in this case.
So for our fund balance, are you referring to the fund balance as of the $74 million, for example?
Well, I'm looking on, there was a couple references, but on page 19, under governmental fund financial analysis, it says, as noted earlier, COSCA uses fund accounting to ensure and demonstrate compliance with finance-related legal requirements. Okay.
Jamie Boscarino, City's Finance Director. So with governmental accounting, we are required to account for certain revenue types and expenditure types by fund. So take the city, for example, our water fund has every revenue we get for our water department has to be accounted for separately than the rest of the city revenues, sales tax revenue, property tax revenue, wastewater. It's a governmental accounting policy. We have to actually separate each type of revenue stream that we get and what it's for into separate funds. So for COSCA, that's why it's termed governmental fund accounting, because we account for our COSCA revenues and our COSCA expenditures in a separate fund, because we can't commingle that revenue with other city expenditures and city activities.
Okay, so it's to distinguish it then as specific for this
Correct.
purpose.
Yeah.
Just as you mentioned, whether it be water or some other fund that you
That's
have,
correct.
just to track it separately and individually.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
We do vote on this, or yeah? Mm-hmm. We don't. Okay.
This will be fun. The adoption of recommended names for 10 trails.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a brief PowerPoint. Last September, the board approved initiation of our next round of trail naming by appointing Director Bill de la Pena and Director Huffer to COSCA's Standing Committee on Naming. As we reviewed at that meeting, several new trails have been constructed since the committee last met in 2015. Since then, many of our unnamed trails have been informally named by trail users who utilize hiking and mountain biking trails applications, also known as apps, such as All Trails and REI's MTB project. App users are able to add trails to apps when the trails aren't already listed, and as a result, some of these trails have more than one name. COSCA staff and rangers prepared a preliminary list of suggested names for the 10 trails we wanted to focus on, and this list was used as a reference for our public workshop in October 2018. Attendees reviewed and augmented the list and concluded by selecting the favorite names for each trail. In January 2019, the naming committee made the final selections. The 10 trails are shown on this map, which can be found on page 38 of your packets. Starting on the northwest side of the map, the recommended names are as follows. Number 1, Lichen Trail. Number 2, Elliott Mountain Trail. Number 3, Outlaw Loop. Number 4, Plateau Rim Trail. Number 5, Volcanic Connector. And number 6, Hidden Rim Trail. And then moving over to the eastern side of the map, we have number 7, the Beargrass Trail, number 8, Little Sandstone, number 9, Wishbone Loop, and number 10, Sherwood Vista. And with that, staff recommends adoption of the new trail names, and I'm available for questions.
Any questions? Director Nichols.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Seems like I'm initiating all the questions here tonight. I did have a question on one of the trails. I'm familiar with, I think, all but maybe 2 of these, and one of them is what's being proposed is the Volcanic Connector. Of course, I see on where it's located on the map, it's severed right at the limits here. So is this actually connecting off into our adjacent agency there? Is there a connected something?
So the reason nothing is depicted beyond that line is because it's private property.
Okay.
But the trail, as it happens, does connect with the Edison service road or the Edison access road that goes all the way up to the peak there.
Okay. All right. So I just wanted to verify that it was actually connecting to something.
Yes, it
okay,
does.
That was it. Just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Very
that was it, Madam
picturesque
Chair.
names. Is there a motion to adopt? All right. And seconded. Thank you. Any other discussion?
I was just going to say we had fun coming up with these names. Director Huffer and Anna Huber and she's not here
Dorothy
tonight.
Sullivan was our
Yes.
COSTAC member who
Yeah, it was
participated.
actually fun. It was my first time doing this, and it was enjoyable. So thank you.
Good choices. All right. All in favor of the trail naming, please say aye.
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 No opposition or abstentions. Very good. Thank you. We have a proposed support letter for the Ventura County Wildlife Corridor Zones. Marjan?
Thank you. The County of Ventura is considering amendments to the Ventura County General Plan and Ventura County Non-Coastal Zoning Ordinance to establish a habitat, connectivity, and wildlife corridors overlay zone and a critical wildlife passage areas overlay zone. These revisions to the county's development review process would establish a consistent evaluation process, as well as new standards for projects proposed in known wildlife movement corridors and habitat linkages. The importance and preservation of wildlife movement corridors are addressed and supported in conservation element of the city's general plan. Chapter 4, Section C to be exact. COSCA strategic plan in the implementation action 7.2 regional linkages, and COSCA's Conejo Canyons management plan section 4.2.9. To date, both the city and CRPD have submitted support letters to the county. In consideration of this, staff has prepared a support letter from COSCA as well, and it can be found on page 42 of your packets. And with that, staff recommends approval of the letter, authorization of the board chair to sign, and staff to submit to the county. Thank you. Staff's available for questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions or a motion? Yes, Director Nichols.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I had a question. Certainly support this because I know the basically the northern half of our county is where all the rural open space is, and a lot of opportunities we need to be able to get the wildlife moving back and forth. But I just did have a couple of questions. Actually, I'll phrase it at once. With the county proposal, are there any private property rights at stake here, or land use planning that this is going to impose on private property in particular, where it's a disadvantage to them, or has that all been kind of filtered through and they're being able to resolve all those issues?
It's my understanding that those have been, for the most part, resolved. The issue has already been before the county's planning commission, and the planning commission voted 5-0 to approve it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Do we have, yes, Director Bill de la Pena.
I wanted to mention that this wildlife overlay or corridor ordinance is something that had been in the making for at least 2 years and was done in conjunction or in concert with some of these major property owner groups. There was compromise, but in the end, it wasn't completely to their satisfaction, and that is why you probably heard about some of the opposition still, even though concessions were made. The Planning Commission, as was stated correctly, did vote 5-0 with amendments, and those amendments will be debated and discussed at this next board meeting in March, is it? So, but the fire department, the fire chief has already declared that this has no impact on any brush clearance on any private properties, and that was, I think, the main concern. So I'm sure they will be able to reach an agreement at this particular hearing.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate that, because I know there has been a lot of discussion, and obviously we're dealing with a county. You got a lot of various interests, but I do think it's a good move forward. Hopefully, they can resolve all those issues.
Right, and anytime there's any kind of a new ordinance, I remember when county was considering an oak tree ordinance, many of the same landowners were terribly upset because they said, that if they couldn't cut down oak trees, they wouldn't have any grazing land. And, clearly that's hyperbole. So these things do have a way of, I think, settling down and resolving in it. And as Director Bill de la Pena said, it has been studied and worked on for a number of years at county planning and with the various groups. Okay. Do we have a motion to
So I'll
adopt the
move to
letter?
approve.
And a second?
I'll second it.
And seconded. Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Thank you very much. Next up is, the strategic plan annual report. Marjan, this is dense.
Thank you. If I could direct your attention to the screen, I have a brief PowerPoint. In June 2013, the board approved the COSCA strategic plan. At the heart of the plan is the implementation action table, which lists the actions needed to accomplish the identified objectives along with the timeframes for the completion. The actions were prioritized with the implementation timeframes of ongoing, years 1 to 4, years 5 to 7, and beyond 7 years. The original table starts on page 47 or 46 of your packet. This year's implementation progress is described in the update table, which starts on page 58 of your packet. Implementation actions are completed as workload allows. We have made progress on several items. However, other actions listed in the update table with the years 1 to 4 timeframe still remain noted as ongoing for future actions. The 5-year mark presents an opportunity to reassess the actions and update their implementation activity. The city anticipates filling the new COSCA administrator position in the next few months, and it is anticipated that this individual would lead the reassessment effort. Highlights of staff's progress on implementation action during 2018 include, of course, the 83-acre Rasnow acquisition is nearing completion. We purchased 0.78-acre parcel in Skyline Open Space. In the Southern Ridge Open Space, we purchased a 0.14-acre parcel. The purchase of another 0.29 acres is in progress, and the donation of 0.36 acres is also in progress. We now have trail maps electronically accessible via QR codes at major trailhead kiosks, and there is a detail of a QR code on a dispenser. Design of the new Conejo Canyons Bridge is underway. The map shows the location, and the inset is a detail from the engineering plans at 30% completion. Also, construction of 1.75 miles of new trail linking Westlake YMCA to North Ranch Open Space is nearly complete. This is the new wishbone loop mentioned previously in item 6E. Beyond this, staff continues to plan and implement non-native plant removal and passive habitat restoration projects in the Conejo Canyons, Wildwood, Sunset Hills, and Labisco Hill open space areas. COSF is contributing funds towards COSCA projects, including the construction of the Conejo Canyons Bridge, as well as the avian species monitoring project in Hill Canyon. And lastly, staff is coordinating with JPA partners on updates to components of COSCA's volunteer program. Thank you. Staff is available for questions.
Okay. Yes, Director Jones.
Yeah, do we have any idea about how long it's going to take to complete the plans for the bridge and then later construct the bridge? Because is it my correct understanding that could alleviate some of the parking in the Wildwood parking lot at the end of Arbalest?
Thank you, Director Jones. The engineering portion of the project is on schedule. Currently, we're probably at about 35 to 40% completion of the engineering process. It is anticipated to be completed later in the spring or early summer. At that time, the project then will go out to bid for the construction phase. The contractor would then need to be selected, and then if everything stays on track, we are hopeful that construction would be completed by the end of the year. Once the bridge is complete, then yes, we are planning to change the address of Wildwood to the Hill Canyon Road, because at that time, we don't have plans to do that prior to bridge completion, because we do not want to introduce pedestrians onto the Hill Canyon access road that leads to the water treatment plant. Yes, hikers and open space visitors use that road, but that's by their own choice, which is a different matter than the agency introducing people onto that road by giving a particular direction to go there. If that road had been designed differently in such a way that pedestrians were accommodated, then that would be, I think, a little bit of a different matter. But we're looking forward to the completion of that bridge so that we can make that address change.
Good. How does that bridge compare in size to the Hill Canyon bridge? Is it about the same length, or
it will be longer because the stream channel is longer in that area. It's wider, the channel itself, so the bridge will be somewhat longer than it is. A little bit wider too, because the nice thing about this project, we're doing it jointly with Public Works, so that bridge will also serve as secondary access for staff at the water treatment plant.
any chance of picking up a used bridge like we did?
You know, we really got lucky that first time around, but that doesn't seem to be the case this time.
I see. But is it going to be the same type of
Very
bridge
similar.
as the Hill Canyon metal bridge?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it would be pre-made. In other words, you're not making it on the site.
Correct.
It's being made and then brought
it will
in
be
by
and then
truck.
positioned, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes, Director Bildo-Pena.
And following up on that, I believe there's also plans to install a traffic light right there, right, to the Hill Canyon water treatment plant. What you say you're working with Public Works? I think that is in the works.
Off the top of my head, we did have an item that went to City Council to do that. I believe it was several meetings ago, and
Or maybe it was just yesterday. I'm not quite sure.
I don't believe it was last night, but there were plans to install a traffic light on, I believe it's Santa Rosa Road at the
Correct.
entrance.
Okay,
And then that
will
light
help
would become
probably with directing traffic.
correct.
Yeah. And what put a smile on my face going over this is of course, one of our top priorities is completing the acquisition of the Rasnow properties, and I'm looking at the time frame. 1 to 2 years was something that we initially had hoped for, and it moved to 5 to 7 years, and now we're in our 7th year. We have to add another category. Well, actually, it says 7 years plus. Hopefully, it'll be done this year. Right?
We're very optimistic about that.
Okay, good. As long as we're optimistic. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Yes,
Yes,
Director Nichols.
thank you, Madam Chair. I was noticing in reviewing this very comprehensive and extensive list, and it seems like there's an awful lot of the boxes checked and or at least items listed in 1 to 4 years or ongoing. Seems like there's a lot of work happening, or at least hoped to be happening. It seems like it's almost like overwhelming. Is this like becoming a burden for staff? And of course, I'm asking probably multiple people. And should some of this maybe be stretched out a little bit more? It just seems like it's almost too much to expect to get done. Is this the question is it a burden at this point?
I wouldn't say it's a burden at all. That table is very comprehensive and includes many different aspects of what comprises open space operation and stewardship. So, but as you've observed, those completion timeframes, many of them are still ongoing or being pushed out into longer timeframes. We do accomplish work as we are able, but I think the next step, since we're at the 5-year mark, will be to revisit the components of that table and then reprioritize.
And am I understanding this correctly, that when this was initially prepared in 2013, that's when the timeframes were set and they've not been adjusted? Or
Correct.
Is it now time to perhaps look at that and say, let's recalibrate and reset the time clock?
Exactly.
Okay. Is that underway, or is that going to happen at some future date?
Well, as you may know, the recruitment is currently open for the COSCA administrator.
Okay.
So once that person is identified, that probably will.
That's the key factor then.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I may, we are in the process of a COSCA administrator recruitment, so we're very optimistic and hopeful as soon as that position is filled, we'll have additional resource and hopefully a re-energized focus, and we will be looking at this. Jim and I have talked about this as well. So it'll certainly be a top priority for the new COSCA administrator.
Okay, thank you. Because I did see the reference there to, the position being open, and I thought, well, that one person isn't going to do all this work. But I can see if you're trying to look for direction as to how now to reschedule this, that makes sense. So thank you.
Yeah, very, very clearly, when it was first put together, this strategic plan, we knew it was super ambitious, and it was like everything but the kitchen sink, everything we could possibly think of. But clearly, all these things, the things that say ongoing, some of them do have to be ongoing, like annual brush clearance, those sort of things. But it's got to be as staff and funding resources are available. So some things just by their very nature get stretched out longer than maybe we initially thought. And other things perhaps aren't as important. They are a wish list, but when we get to it, we'll get to it. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Yes, I think that's accurate.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, I think since this is not an action item, it was a report. We will go on to the COSCA budget update for 2018-19, and that's on it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Both the city and CRPD approved their budgets on a 2-year cycle. Approvals last occurred on June 13th and June 15th, 2017, respectively, and addressed the budgets for fiscal years 2017-18 and 2018-19. Each September, staff provides the board with a corresponding update on the budget COSCA will be working with for the respective fiscal year. An update for fiscal year 2018-19 was not included in any of our meetings during the last quarter of 2018, so is being provided at this time. As you can see, the budget remains fairly consistent from year to year with the exception of market-based salary and benefit adjustments, and the table on page 70 of your packets provides that additional information.
Any comments or questions on the budget item? Okay, hearing none. Lake Eleanor update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This item was originally discussed at our September 2017 meeting. To recap, COSCA received a letter from the California Department of Water Resources in July 2017 describing that new legislation had been implemented as a result of the Oroville Dam failure. This legislation required that all dam owners were now required to prepare flood maps and emergency action plans. And in our case, a consultant was retained to prepare these documents, and those were submitted to the state by the required deadline. So everything is completed for that.
Good.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. And how about the operating engineers update?
Okay, last but not least, this item was initially discussed with the board during closed session at our November 2018 meeting, and we're just pleased to share that the case has been resolved, and we're looking forward to initiating the restoration work later this spring. This is a really positive outcome in protecting these additional open space parcels. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Okay. Mr. Kuba, I think you're up for ranger operations and maintenance activities.
Thank you very much. I will have a PowerPoint presentation. And recent ranger operations, hint, it's mostly post-fire stuff. But we did have a trail workday. This is the official Wishbone Trail, as you so happily named. And this was the trail workday in the fall. We had about 85 people. City of Westlake was very supportive of it. They're very happy with the trail alignment, and it made a great connection for them. This gives you a really good idea of the before and after. That is just brushed trail where we've cut back the existing brush, and then the volunteer crews came through and did the cut. So it's pretty dramatic, and you did see the map. And the only thing that's left is right at the park behind the baseball field is a small bridge that has to be built across the V ditch, and the city of Westlake is paying for a kiosk to be put in there with information. So that's upcoming, hopefully within the next month. So that's pretty fun.
Mr. Cooper, was
Yes.
that all handwork, or were you able to use a Swaco?
No, that was all handwork.
Wow.
We've been very efficient with the trail work days. We've had great turnouts. People really love it, and we've been having the 2 work days each year has been really, really great. So we've been doing really well, and 1.75 is about our average right now per year with the volunteers. So on to the fires. So one of our rangers happened to be getting fuel just as the Hill Canyon fire started. So this is at 1:41 p.m. and that was just about 2 minutes after it started, and this is 3 minutes after that. So from the first picture that you saw, and you can see spots down below in going into the canyon, and then 2 minutes later, that's what it looked like. So it very quickly took off and went up the hill. Then as it reached the top of the hill at Lizard Rock, it blew back into Hill Canyon and then did what it did. That's what it looked like in the evening. And of course, about 20 minutes later, the Woolsey fire started blowing on the other side of COSCA open space. The fire photo there is actually the Shumash Museum on the hillside above it. I scaled out the flame in the center there, and it's about 75-foot flame lick there going up. And that was about 3 o'clock in the morning. It was pretty dramatic to be out there. The next morning, the Woolsey fire circled through Hillcrest open space and actually came up on our CRPD and the ranger yard where we have all of our equipment. So we had a very exciting 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, moving all of our equipment to a safe spot. We have a fire hydrant there. We ran our own hoses out there, and then the fire department came in with one truck and assisted. And then this is the bridge. So after the fires, we went through and assessed damage, tried to make things as safe as possible. And from my experience in disasters, normalization is the cry to try and get people back out on the trails, to try and get life back to normal, to get the community going. And so that's what we've tried to do. And this is part of making it safe. So we had to actually block off the Hill Canyon Bridge quite extensively until we get it fixed. There was some damage out there. We've had 2 consultants come and look at the bridge. We have another consultant that's coming next week to actually take 2 metal samples off of the bridge and do some high-end metal checking to make sure that it's fine, or sections of it may need to be replaced. The bridge company is fully prepared to come in and help out with that. They can fabricate the parts pretty quickly. So once the action's determined, we should be able to get the bridge back up pretty quickly. But it's been the testing and the looking at it for the past couple months that has been tough. And that's keeping that whole side of the Hill Canyon access closed, which is kind of frustrating. But it's pushed people up to the SCE road and into that area, which has actually been pretty good. We've taken advantage of the fires and tried to do as much cleanup of large material that we can. We've pulled out old sewer pipe and junk that was left in Hill Canyon, Hawk Canyon, and in the Lang Ranch area as much as we can. Working with the fire department, we've removed, I believe, 4 vehicles from the 60s and 70s, and we have, I think, 5 more on our list. We're probably going to wait until summertime to do those additional 5, let the healing happen a little bit more. There's been pressure to go out and pick up all the bottles and things like that out there. The damage that walking across the soils would do far outweighed the value of picking up bottles and such. And that was a decision that was made, that we would try and get as much of the big stuff as we could. So the Rangers have tons and tons and tons and tons. This is some of the infrastructure that was lost: benches, signage, Eagle Scout projects, bell boxes throughout the district. A lot of oak trees were scorched. We are waiting for the spring flush to see which ones come back. We've had arborists check out the ones that are adjacent to trails that might be a hazard. We've redirected people, trails and such for the hazardous ones, or removed ones that were actually totally burned up. This is some of the work that the rangers have been doing. Some of the bridges that burned, they got in quickly and replaced them. We've been using there's a contract crew that we use, and their name is The Crew. They're out of Ojai. So they've come in and helped out with some of the work when they've been available, but they've also been on other districts and cities and open space doing stuff. And luckily, we have some really talented rangers that have been able to come in and do a lot of the work themselves. Just a little sequence here of this is the Hill Canyon Overlook bench that burned up. And this is how you get materials up to that bench. So we the rangers hauled up all that wood, and got the new wood put in. That's probably safer than it looks. This is some of the signage from the Lang Ranch area and Hill Canyon that was burned, and what it takes to go and put them back. We pride ourselves on our signs and having the very authentic open space signs. So they're routed. We have 3 or 4 of the rangers and some of the ground staff that are trained to use our sign making machine. So the CRPD ground staff on rainy days and inclement weather have been working on signage as well. And then now we're getting into the rainy season. And I put this picture here because, and I zoomed in a bit, to show why we close the open space. And part of it is, and I'm talking to you, public, you see the slippy, slidey marks there. If you break your leg or you twist your ankle down in the canyon, or if you're up on Los Robles or one of our trails, there's no way to get to you because we can't get a vehicle to you. The rangers can't get to you. So please stay out of open space when it is closed. Okay. One more thing I wanted to say about the rains. When they were coming in, the rangers worked with a sheriff detail to go into all of our regular areas where we have people that are susceptible to storm. So we cleared them out multiple times. I think 4 times we've gone in to those areas and moved people. This is some of the damage up in Lang Ranch after the first big rain incident. Made the roads pretty slick and a lot of material moved in. The Shumash Museum parking lot had quite a mud flow on it, and the museum was closed for 3 or 4 days for accessibility to the parking lot. The museum's been open since the fire quite a bit, but the canyon's been closed. We've made the trail safe for trees, but now we've got so much mud up there that the kids are not able to go on a hike until it dries out a little bit more and we move some more material. Some of the other areas that the rangers have been working on, on the left is Dos Vientos Trailhead, and then some of the washouts that's in the Sunset Hills area, I believe. This is a lot of the Lang Ranch access roads and larger trails. We were able to get the trail cat out into that area. There were some very, very deep ruts, and we were able to get those filled in using the trail machine. And I put this picture here because that tree is beautiful and it's still standing strong. And if you look right in the center, the bright green, you're seeing some new growth. And you also see some cut marks on limbs that were burned beyond safety, so those were removed. But that tree is strong and it's standing, and we're very happy with that. Here's some little guys that are coming up. This is a black sage that's coming through from a root sprout. The chaparral is highly adapted to fire, so the burls actually grow very quickly back with saved energy. And this is a peony. Yeah. If you get a chance to see one of these, you have to lay down on your back and look up at them to enjoy their beauty. But these are dormant during the fire season, so this one woke up and said, "Oh wow, no competition with anybody, so this is awesome." Elaine Hagan took this photograph, and I'm just blinded by the green. I'm so happy. I hope you are too. And just to show you how up-to-date this report is, that was 4 hours ago. And this is on the west end of the Los Robles Trail. We have a very, very steep section where we have to put in drainage bars. We don't usually put in drainage bars on our trails, but this one section does have it. And the best time to work on trail and learn about where the drainage problems are is to be out there in the rain. So that's what the rangers are doing. I also love all the ceanothus blooming in the background. Now, typically, I end our slideshows with a sunset, but this is a different kind of sunset. So Kevin Smith, a ranger for well over 30 years, retired recently. That's actually him leaning against the truck, the front of the truck on the upper left. And if you look at the back of the truck in the upper left, that's Tim Hagel.
Tim Hagel, yeah.
Junior
Ranger.
Junior Ranger. And then just a couple pictures of Kevin. And Kevin was a fantastic ranger. He taught me a lot about plumbing and a lot about carpentry. So he's going to be missed. We are recruiting for a new ranger right now, and hopefully we get them on board soon. So I'm available for any questions if you'd like.
Fantastic report. Questions of Mr. Kuka? Thank you so much, Matt.
Sure.
Really appreciate it. We have any updates from general manager or city manager? No?
No updates.
No updates. Okay. Let's see. Any board member comments? Hearing none. Our next regular meeting will be Wednesday, May 8th in this location. Thank you all very much.